Hi there everyone, my name's Dave West. I hope we're all doing well. So welcome back to another video test with the iPhone 14 Plus. And today I'm checking out the high dynamic range video recording option. Now this is available on all of the cameras, including the front and the two rear cameras. It also works for things like the action mode as well, which is really cool. Now as with all ultimate video tests, I'll leave all of the main camera specifications down in the description. And I'll just run through some of the high level features throughout this video to help save you some time. Now the front-facing camera is new for the iPhone 14 Plus, and that is still a 12 megapixel camera, but it now has optical image stabilization and also has phase detection autofocus, as you can see there, which is nifty. But you still get the excellent electronic image stabilization, Apple's wide stereo sound recording, and also you get nicely exposed visuals as I can see from the Selfie camera. Some Selfie cameras on other handsets tend to kind of blow out the background in favor of a nicely exposed subject. But you can see there, you can even get the shape and dimension of the clouds in the background, as well as a pretty wide field of view as well, which is really nice. And here is 4K at 60 frames per second from the Selfie camera in HDR mode. Now you can see, starting to see a little bit of blowout in the clouds in the background versus 4K 30. Now it's no big deal really, because you can always just set your exposure before you start recording to get a more flat look across the board. The idea of a Selfie camera is to see the person, self, so to speak. And I think it does a cracking job in both 30 and 60 FPS modes. It's giving you this really nice looking video, nice and natural with good stabilization at the same time. And if I just move the camera up, you can see what I'm talking about there, where it just blows out the background. You can just see it changing, whereas if I move, you'll see the detail in the clouds is more pronounced. Now, because I'm recording in HDR, it's a great excuse to show you the awesome cinematic video mode, which is available on both the front and the rear cameras with the iPhone 14 Plus. And this time we can record up to 4K at 30 frames per second. You can also do 24 frames per second and even drop it down to 1080p if you wish, just to save a little bit of space on your storage. And you can see the effect is really cool. I think it's been improved from the iPhone 13 series. On the iPhone 13, it looked a bit too stuck on, if you like. Now it looks still a little bit like that, but don't forget you can actually change the depth of the image in post-production, so to speak. Sounds a bit lavish, to be honest, but if you edit in the video, you can actually do it in the built-in gallery on the iPhone and just change the perspective so you don't get such an aggressive roll-off into the background. But the effect actually is really nice, and the detail, especially if you look at my beard here, which is aging as the videos roll on, it is a really nice, pleasing effect. I think Apple have done a really good job with this in order to give you that. I don't know if it's cinematic, it's more like portrait mode taken to the extreme, where I can even just tap on different areas of the screen and it'll bring those into focus. And I can go back on myself then to get that kind of rack focus effect, as they call it, where it just goes from subject to background to give you that nice focus roll-off effect. All right, so rear cameras then in HDR. So we'll start off with the 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera. So this is the same as you will find on the iPhone 12 and 13. And it's the good old dependable 120 degree super wide field of view, electronic image stabilization, and records up to 4K at 60 in both standard and high dynamic range. You can always use the action mode on this and the main camera as well. I'll show you that in a bit. Now, what impresses me most with the ultra-wide camera is that Apple have done a really good job of retaining the wide field of view from the ultra-wide camera, as well as the really awesome electronic image stabilization. Now, phones I've used on the Android operating system tend to crop in quite a bit on the ultra-wide camera in order to get you nice stabilized images using the ultra-wide camera, but it does mean it robs the image of some width, whereas the iPhone, it's nice super wide field of view which packs in loads of detail right to every corner, as you can see there, which is pretty cool. And you can even switch to the main camera on the go, and you can see that the consistency in color, temperature and white balance is exactly the same between the both of the cameras, which is cool. And talking of the main camera, this is another 12 megapixel lens. Now this has been borrowed over from the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max. So it's nice to see Apple doing a bit of recycling from the old spare parts bin and using these on their newer phones to give those who don't want all of the Pro features of the Pro and Pro Max version of the iPhone 14, or something a bit more just easy going in terms of the camera, but still gets the benefit of a really awesome sensor borrowed from the older Pro models. Now the difference with this is that you get the sensor shift technology. So all that means is, in a nutshell, optical stabilization usually is just the top part of the lens, or the round bit which is attached to the actual lens at the back, and just that top bit will move to give you optical image stabilization. But with the main lens on the iPhone 14 Plus, the entire lens moves inside the chassis of the phone. So when I go left, the camera will shift right, and vice versa, up, down, and on the diagonal as well. So essentially it gives you a much more stable image for video. And also if you're sort of taking photos in low light, it will allow you just that greater degree of control. So as the phone is moving around, it's allowing the lens to shift around and still capture light without getting those awful streaky effects that you can sometimes see in low light environments. And if I go for a quick run while I'm toggling onto the main lens, hopefully you can see the benefit of the sensor shift technology along with the electronic image stabilization, which is always switched on the iPhone. Now you can zoom up to 3 times. That's as far as it will go in both 4K and in 4K 30 and 4K 60. So you can see there it's quite noisy and starting to break up with a lot of over sharpening. If you use 2 times zoom, in my opinion, that is entirely usable video. It just allows you to just get a little bit closer to the action or whatever you're recording on video. And you can even pinch like this and get this really cool, seamless, smooth zoom effect, which is good. So let's just check out autofocus. And you can see nice smooth lock on the subject. So when it moves from subject to background, you don't get that snap effect you can sometimes see on cheaper phones. And you also get nice detail. If you look at the lines on my case, they're nice and distinct. You don't get any fringing effects or anything like that. And you can see it's capturing the nice dark color of the camera surround on my Oppo Find X5 there as well as the detail, bits of dust on there as well, you can see. So again, super solid as always in autofocus with the iPhone. But you let me know what you think down in the comments. Alright, so new for the iPhone 14 series is the action mode. This is a pretty nifty feature. It's been around for years on Android and is usually known as super stable, super steady, super mega kung fu stabilization steady, whatever they seem to call it these days, different for every phone. But essentially what it does is it just crops in a little bit more on the image and it uses the information you can't see around the frame in order to give you super stable video. So this is at 2.8K at 60 frames per second. Image quality is the same at 30 or 60, so I thought I may as well show you 60 because that's what loads of people seem to be interested in these days. And if I go for a quick run, you can hopefully see how the iPhone works its magic in giving you a really nice stable image. Now, one thing to note very quickly is that you can switch lenses at 60 frames per second using the action mode, but what you're doing is you're cropping from the ultra wide camera, so you'll notice the image quality is significantly worse than if you were to just stop recording and switch to the other lens like this. And you can see there's a dramatic difference there in the quality when you actually stop recording, select the lens again, and then start recording. But with the sensor shift technology, plus action mode, plus EIS, you do get this super kind of on rails look to the video. I can just tell you how narrow the crop is. The edges of these here are a good 2 meters away, but actually looks closer when using the action mode, and that's just to give you an idea of the crop factor when using this option. Alright, so here's cinematic mode then from the rear camera. Now it doesn't work so well on non-human subjects, unfortunately. But I'm just trying to show you the rack focus effect you can get using the cinematic mode on the rear lens. So you can see it's really struggling to kind of maintain focus. It's because this area is so large, but if I just tap over here, you get a nice sort of filmy focus effect between the two subjects, which is pretty neat. Again, you're meant to use this on human subjects more than anything, but I just wanted to show you the rack focus effect that you can get anywhere between the different areas of the image. So you can just go just over here, a bit further again, and then back again, and that gives you an idea of how that works. It's a pretty cool feature, and if I spin the phone around, and hopefully it will focus on my face. And this is how it looks from the main rear cameras using the cinematic mode. And again, it's a really nice, pleasing effect. And I don't think anyone would fail to be impressed by the quality of the video using the cinematic mode, because I think it looks really good indeed. Don't think it's necessarily better than anything I've seen on Android in terms of the actual effect. But don't forget, you get the built-in data, which is actually embedded in the video. So when you go to the Apple Gallery later on, or Photos as it's called, you can actually change the depth of field in editing, which is really cool. So with Android, it's actually locked into the video itself, so you can't actually change it later on. With the iPhone, it retains all of the depth data from the image and then allows you to actually change it later on, which is a really cool feature. So if you don't like what you see here, and I'm not just talking about me, then you can actually go and change that later on if you're not quite happy with the depth of field and the overall look of the image. Alright, so that's the end then of the iPhone 14 Plus High Dynamic Range Ultimate video test. So I'm finishing off the video using an ultra-wide camera on the back of the phone just to show you how it works on human subjects. Now I think as a compromise iPhone is what I call it. So for those who really aren't bothered or don't want all of the pro features that you get in the Pro model, then this makes a really good proposition. The battery life is absolutely epic on the iPhone 14 Plus. Easily 2 days plus if you're just using it for usual day-to-day stuff. And even if you're going to go power hungry, you'll still get easily over a day's worth of power out of this thing, which is really impressive. It's very unassuming to look at and sort of quite ordinary looking like other iPhones, but what's underneath the surface and what Apple have packed in is really impressive. And that extends to the camera and video set. So if you've got any comments or questions about anything you've seen in this video, then please leave those down in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And don't forget, if you're new around here, then please do consider subscribing, so there's more videos coming like this on the channel very, very soon. But this has been my look at the high dynamic range video on the iPhone 14 Plus. My name is Dave West, and I'll catch you guys later.